Allo Allo ran for 10 years, survived cast changes, a near-fatal accident, and somehow made wartime occupation funny enough to keep 18 million British viewers glued to their screens every week. But what happened to the cast who made Café Rene one of television's most beloved addresses is a story worth telling all on its own. Let's get into it. Number 1, we have Gorden Kaye as René Artois. There has genuinely never been another character quite like Rene on British television. The perpetually exhausted, perpetually unfaithful cafe owner caught between Nazis, the resistance, and 2 waitresses who both adored him. And Kaye was 41 years old when he first put on that apron and stepped behind the counter for what would become a decade of beloved chaos. He passed away on January 23, 2017, at 75. For most of his life, Kaye was extraordinarily private, describing himself in his autobiography as a shy, overweight gay boy who found his entire identity through performing. A tabloid outed him in 1989 while the show was still running, and he addressed it on his own terms afterwards with quiet dignity. The most dramatic moment of his real life came in 1990 when a piece of wooden hoarding smashed through his car windscreen during a storm and embedded in his forehead. A near-fatal accident that left him with permanent scarring and memory loss. He recovered and came back to finish the show. Rene survived everything the writers threw at him, and so did Gorden Kaye. Number 2, we have Carmen Silvera as Edith Artois. Edith was the show's greatest running joke, the wife whose singing could clear a room, whose suspicions about Rene were always correct, and whose love for him somehow survived everything. And Silvera played her with such magnificent comic commitment that audiences adored her even while laughing at her. She was 60 years old when the show began, which makes her decade-long physical performance even more remarkable. She passed away on July 2, 2002, at 80. Her personal life carried real heartbreak that she rarely spoke about publicly. She lost her only child, a son, in infancy, and channeled the grief of that loss into a career that kept her working consistently for the rest of her life. She had been married once to John Cunliffe in the 1940s, but never remarried after their divorce. In her final years, she lived at Denville Hall, the retirement home for actors. Edith never stopped singing no matter how bad it got, and Carmen Silvera never stopped working either. Number 3, we have Richard Gibson as Herr Flick. Cold, robotic, and somehow deeply ridiculous all at once. Flick was one of the great comic villains of British television, and Gibson was only 28 years old when he first stalked into Café Rene in that leather coat with that terrifying blank expression. In 2026, he is 72. He left before the final season due to a scheduling conflict and was replaced by another actor, a decision that upset fans enormously. Most still consider Gibson the only real Flick. What he has done with that loyalty is genuinely heartwarming. He regularly appears at conventions and charity events in full Gestapo costume, using the character that made him famous to raise money for good causes. He has been married to Kate Gibson since 1993, and they have 2 sons, living a quiet life in Ireland far from the spotlight. Herr Flick terrified everyone at Café Rene, but the man behind the leather coat turned out to be one of the warmest people in this entire cast. Number 4, we have Kim Hartman as Private Helga Gerhardt. Helga spent 10 years being caught between Colonel von Strohm and Herr Flick in increasingly ridiculous situations, and Hartman played every single moment with perfect deadpan commitment that made the character completely irresistible. She was 30 years old when filming began and is 74 today. Her life contains one of the most extraordinary footnotes of anyone in this cast. Through her marriage to actor John Nolan in 1975, she became the aunt by marriage to Christopher Nolan, the director behind the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, and Oppenheimer, a Hollywood royalty connected directly to Café Rene. After the show ended, she and Richard Gibson formed a touring cabaret double act that leaned into their characters' strange dynamic and became a massive hit with fans across Europe. She has continued working steadily in British television ever since, most recently appearing in Doctors in 2023. Helga was always tangled up in other people's schemes, but Kim Hartman has written her own story beautifully. Number 5, we have Guy Seiner as Lieutenant Gruber. Gruber was something genuinely unusual for 1980s British television, a gay character written with warmth and courage rather than mockery, a man who was brave, loyal, and funny, and whose obvious affection for Rene became one of the show's most endearing running threads. Seiner was 35 years old when he first appeared and is 78 today. He has spent years thoughtfully defending Gruber's legacy, arguing that the character was ahead of its time for being written as genuinely lovable rather than just a punchline. A conversation that feels even more relevant now than when he first started having it. After the show, he moved to Los Angeles and built a significant career in voice acting and production before eventually returning to the UK. He has kept his personal life entirely private throughout, never marrying and sharing very little publicly. He also holds the rare distinction of having appeared in both Star Trek and Doctor Who, making him something of a legend in those communities. Gruber was brave enough to love openly in wartime France, and Guy Senior has been brave enough to defend that legacy ever since. Number 6, we have Kirsten Cook as Michelle Dubois. On Nobody delivered a catchphrase with more urgency or more comedy than Kirsten Cook. Listen very carefully. "I shall say this only once" became one of the most quoted lines in British sitcom history, and she was 30 years old when she first whispered it with that magnificent intensity. In 2026, she is 73. She has been married to Steve Cook for decades and has 2 children, maintaining the kind of stable private life that most of her castmates managed to build away from the cameras. What delighted fans recently was a viral reunion photo in 2025 showing the surviving cast members together, still completely in character, which spread across social media and reminded an entirely new generation why the show mattered. She has remained close friends with Vicki Michelle throughout, the 2 of them keeping the Café Rene spirit alive at British comedy events for years. Michelle always said she would say things only once, but Kirsten Cook has kept people talking about her for decades. Number 7, we have Richard Marner as Colonel von Strohm. Von Strohm was the bumbling, art-obsessed German officer who spent most of the show trying to steal a painting while simultaneously trying not to get caught by his own side. And Marner played his particular brand of pompous cowardice with magnificent consistency across the entire run. He was 61 years old when the show began. He passed away on March 18, 2004, at 82. The detail about his real life that makes everything about his casting feel almost poetic is this: Marner was not German at all. He was born in Russia as Alexander Molchanov, fled during the Revolution, and during the Second World War actually served in the Royal Air Force, fighting against the very regime he would later spend a decade comically portraying on television. He was married to actress Pauline Collins from 1947 until his death and had 1 daughter. The Colonel spent 10 years running from responsibility on screen, but the man playing him had already spent years running towards something far more dangerous in real life. Number 8, we have Rose Hill as Madame Fanny LaFan. Fanny was the show's most gloriously immovable character, permanently bedridden upstairs, permanently scandalized by everything happening below, and permanently flashing her bedknobs at anyone within range. And Hill brought her to life with the timing and commitment of someone who had been performing for longer than most of the cast had been alive. She was already 68 years old when the show began. She passed away on December 22, 2003, at 89. What most audiences never knew was that the woman playing the comically terrible singer upstairs was in real life a former star of the Sadler's Wells Opera, a genuinely accomplished soprano whose musical talent was the complete opposite of everything Fanny represented. She had been married to John Hitchcock since 1941 and spent her final years at Denville Hall alongside her castmate Carmen Silvera, the 2 of them ending up under the same roof one last time. Fanny never left her bed on screen, but Rose Hill spent a lifetime going everywhere the music took her. Number 9, we have Arthur Bostrom as Officer Crabtree. The entire joke of Crabtree was breathtakingly simple: a British spy pretending to be a French policeman with the most catastrophically mangled French accent imaginable. And Bostrom committed to it so completely across 74 episodes that it never got old once. He joined the show in 1985 when he was 30 years old and is 71 today. His real life turns out to be almost as adventurous as his character's cover story. He is a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society, a dedicated traveler, and a well-known figure in London theatre circles. In 2024, he published a book of deliberately mangled English in the spirit of Crabtree, raising funds for theatrical charities and delighting fans who had been quoting his mispronunciations for 40 years. He has never married and keeps his personal life entirely to himself, preferring to let his work and his travels do the talking. Crabtree mangled every word he ever said, but Arthur Bostrom has made every one of his count. Number 10, we have Kenneth Connor as Monsieur Alfonse. The undertaker who arrived at Café Rene in 1984 with his little case of samples and his magnificent mustache became one of the show's most beloved additions almost immediately. And Connor was already 66 years old when he joined, bringing decades of carry-on film experience to a role that fitted him like a perfectly tailored funeral suit. He passed away on November 28, 1993, at 75. His death came as a genuine shock to the cast because Connor had shown absolutely no signs of slowing down, He appeared on Noel's house party just 2 days before he died, performing with the same energy and precision that had defined his entire career. He had been married to Margaret Moore since 1942, and their son Jeremy followed him into acting. In 1991, he was awarded an MBE for his services to entertainment, a recognition that felt long overdue. Monsieur Alfonse always had a coffin ready for someone else, but nobody saw his own departure coming quite so soon. Number 11, we have Jack Haig as Roger LeClerc. It is I, LeClerc, became one of the most instantly recognizable entrances in British sitcom history, the disguised resistance member whose elaborate costumes fooled absolutely nobody and whose dramatic reveals never failed to get a laugh. And Haig was already 69 years old when he first appeared, a veteran of the variety circuit whose entire career had been building toward exactly this kind of role. He passed away on July 4, 1989, at 76, during the show's run. His death hit the cast particularly hard because LeClerc was so woven into the fabric of the show's rhythms that replacing him felt almost impossible. The writers eventually introduced his brother, played by Derek Royal, to fill the gap, but fans never quite accepted the substitution in the same way. He had been married to fellow variety performer Sybil Dunn since 1944, and the two of them had built their lives entirely around the world of entertainment. LeClerc always insisted on announcing himself dramatically, and Jack Haig left just as dramatically and far too soon. Number 12, we have Sam Kelly as Captain Geering. Geering was the gentler of the two German officers, perpetually nervous, perpetually confused, and somehow the most sympathetic Nazi in television history, and Kelly brought a vulnerability to the role that made every scene with him feel unexpectedly human. He was 39 when the show began and left after 5 seasons, a decision driven by a very deliberate choice. He passed away on June 14, 2014, at 70. Kelly walked away from Allo Allo, specifically because he was terrified of being typecast, and the gamble paid off beautifully. He went on to acclaimed work in Porridge and built a West End theater career that earned him enormous respect as a serious dramatic actor. In the final year of his life, he completed a celebrated run in Wicked before cancer took him. He never married, kept his personal life fiercely private, and was universally described by his theatrical circle as the funniest man in any room he ever entered. Our Geering always looked like he was about to be caught, but Sam Kelly was always exactly where he wanted to be. Number 13, we have Sue Hodge as Mimi Labonq. Mimi arrived at Café Rene in 1987 as the second waitress, tiny, ferocious, and hopelessly devoted to Rene, in a way that somehow never stopped being funny. And Hodge threw herself into every physical scene with an energy that made her one of the show's most watchable performers in its later seasons. She was 30 years old when she joined and is 68 today. She has leaned into her legacy with tremendous warmth and wit, touring a one-woman show called Mimi and Me for years that celebrated the character while showcasing her own considerable range. She met her husband Keith Richards, not that one, while working together on the Rocky Horror Show, and they married in 2002. Building a solid life together in the entertainment world. In late 2025, she made headlines for her charity work with the Grand Order of Lady Ratlings, an organization dedicated to female performers. Mimi was always the smallest person in the room but the hardest one to ignore, and Sue Hodge has made sure that is still true in 2026. Number 14, we have Hilary Minster as General von Klinkerhoffen. The General was the show's most genuinely threatening comic presence. The cold, aristocratic Prussian, whose contempt for everyone around him never quite descended into farce the way the other German characters did. And Minster played that dangerous, straight man quality with real precision across 59 episodes. He was 38 years old when he joined the show in 1984. He passed away on November 24, 1999, at just 55 years old, from cancer, one of the youngest losses this entire cast suffered. What struck everyone who knew him was the complete contrast between the icy general he portrayed and the genuinely warm, kind man he was in real life. He was a prolific voice actor alongside his television work and a devoted family man with 2 children. His death at such a relatively young age robbed British comedy of a performer who still had so much to give. Von Klinkerhoffen never showed a moment of warmth on screen, but everyone who worked with Hilary Minster remembered almost nothing else about him. Number 15. We have John D. Collins as Flying Officer Fairfax. The 2 stranded British airmen were one of the show's most reliable comic engines, hopelessly incompetent, permanently in disguise, and somehow never any closer to getting home despite 10 years of trying. And Collins played Fairfax with the particular kind of cheerful uselessness that British audiences find deeply endearing. He was 40 years old when the show began and is 83 today. He and Nicholas Francois became a genuine real-life double act over the years, appearing together at fan conventions and British comedy events with the same easy chemistry their characters always had on screen. Collins has worked extensively in radio and theater throughout his career, maintaining a steady professional life well away from any controversy or tabloid attention. He has been married to Jan Collins for over 40 years, and the two of them are frequently spotted together at Comedy Society events. Fairfax spent a decade trying to escape France without success, but John D. A. Collins has never seemed in any hurry to escape the legacy the show gave him. Number 16. We have Vicki Michelle as Yvette Carte Blanche. Yvette was the heart of Café Rene in many ways, the waitress whose devotion to Rene was genuine even when everything around her was absurd. And Michelle was 32 years old when she first appeared, bringing a warmth and timing to the role that kept her at the center of the show for all 85 episodes across an entire decade. In 2026, she is 75. Her personal life has been one of this entire cast's great quiet success stories. She has been married to Graham Fowler since 1974, a 51-year marriage that stands as one of the longest in British television history. Their daughter Louise followed her into acting. In 2015, she found herself in an unexpected tabloid moment when she was injured during a physical altercation between other contestants on Celebrity Big Brother's Bit on the Side and subsequently pressed charges, a dramatic departure from her usual public image. In recent years, she has become a passionate campaigner for Age UK, advocating loudly for the dignity and recognition of older performers in an industry that too often forgets them. Yvette always gave everything she had to Rene, and Vicki Michelle has spent her later years giving everything she has to causes far more worthy of it. Number 17, we have Nicholas Francois as Flying Officer Carstairs. Where Collins played Fairfax with cheerful obliviousness, Francois brought a slightly more anxious energy to Carstairs. The two of them balanced perfectly as a double act whose chemistry felt genuinely natural rather than rehearsed. He was 28 years old when the show began and is 71 today. His life after Allo Allo took a turn that most of his castmates never anticipated. He stepped away from acting almost entirely and built a successful second career in software development and technical writing, becoming exactly the kind of quietly competent professional his character could never convincingly pretend to be. He lives privately between the UK and Cambridge and has kept his personal life entirely away from public attention. He still occasionally reunites with Collins for charity events. Yes, and the warmth between them whenever they appear together suggests that whatever Fairfax and Carstairs never quite managed, Collins and Francois figured out long ago. Carstairs never did find his way home from France, but Nicholas Francois found his way to a completely different life entirely. Number 18, we have Francesca Gonshaw as Maria Recamier. Maria was the original second waitress, younger and more romantically impulsive than Yvette, always threatening to complicate Rene's already impossibly complicated life. And Gonshaw was just 24 years old when she joined the show, one of the youngest significant cast members in the entire production. In 2026, she is 66. She left after 5 seasons to join the drama series Howard's Way, a decision that effectively ended her television acting career as the industry gradually moved on. What happened next is genuinely one of the most unexpected second acts in this entire cast story. She walked away from performing completely and built a highly successful career as a senior curator at a major London art gallery, becoming a respected figure in the fine arts world that has absolutely nothing to do with wartime France or café waitresses. She rarely attends fan events and has kept both her personal life and her professional reinvention largely private, clearly preferring the quiet authority of a gallery to the noise of convention halls. Maria spent her time at Café Rene, dreaming of something more, and Francesca Gonshaw went out and built it entirely on her own terms. Remember when movie posters weren't just advertisements, they were moments. I've put together a curated collection of over 1,000 legendary 70s, 80s, and 90s movie posters. It's perfect for collectors, nostalgia lovers, and anyone who grew up during the golden era of film. You can grab it right now using the link in the description.